Hi, everyone. Welcome to another podcast episode of the Money Master HQ show. I hope all are doing well. And I know we've got a global audience here. And today we've got an incredible guest with us, Emily Schneider. Emily, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's so great to be here.
Where are you joining us from, Emily?
Outside of Chicago in the northwest suburbs of Arlington Heights.
Nice. Okay. Thanks for joining in, Emily. Now, would you like to introduce yourself and let me and the audience know on how you got here and what else?
Totally. Of course. I am a visual storyteller. I specialize in PowerPoint design. My magical knack is simplifying complex information. And so when it comes to supporting businesses and helping them tell their stories better, my goal is to elevate the design and the way that the story is being understood by the audience to allow their speaker and the presenter to have a more authentic connection, creating credibility, trust, accountability that will then lead to better and more informed and impactful business decisions to move their businesses along. I got here through a series of always loving how things work together and look. I grew up in the agency marketing world, and even though I was marketing, designing marketing pieces, we always had to sell that into our clients. And I realized early on that I loved being part of building that story and the joy that it came when a client was able to understand and actually respond or, make a choice that as a team, we were like, these are our recos, especially when we designed that right to set it up. That was such a win for us. And when I realized that it was bigger than just the agency worlds, that all businesses need and could use that support. And I started to see that when I would get my own clients, it's so much joy to help somebody build their confidence and just feel more prepared and ready to tell their story. And then the ripple effect happens. So I get to do what I love, and then I get to help people create more confidence and do what they love and, move things along.
Wow, what an incredible thing that you're doing. I mean, I've attended a number of summits, presentations, events where, most of these presentations are done. And most of the time, I find it kind of boring where people just kind of read out of the slides rather than, adding their bits and, making it of use and value. So
Yep.
we like to talk about, how to approach preparing a great presentation. Something.
Totally. So just to set this up, so our brains, right, can only digest and seek and intake information so much. I kind of am starting to geek out about the neuroscience behind storytelling and presentations and just connections and how we relate to each other. But we're 65% more likely to retain information when it's visually designed than 10 to 20% when it's just copy. So to your point of like, we've all been in really long presentations or conversations or, at events where like the slides up there are painful because you don't know, you're not listening, you're not reading, you're just become disengaged and right. And with always having a phone now, I feel like now you're looking down and you've lost your audience. But the power of being able to design something so that you lead and you become the conversation conductor has really like limitless potential in your business growth, because when you can captivate and engage and tell your story right, you lead them exactly where you want them to be and make that decision or and update them or get that investment, right? It's the use case of how a well-designed presentation can be leveraged is amazing. The way I approach it and my strategy is really, it comes down to a four-step process. It's important to know and understand who your audience is. It allows you to clarify your purpose and also articulate what that desired action is you want from them. You also, it's important to know who your audience is so you can identify what you need them to know and why. Also based on where they are within an organization or at a point of their day, if they're at a conference, like all of that is important so that you can put the right information in your story so that they can be engaged and captivated and interested. Within an organization, usually the people at the top actually need the least amount of detail, but they need a lot of information. versus your peers, they're going to need more day-to-day, details if you're kind of giving a business update. So it's important to know who they are and what they need to know and why. And then the other important thing I always discuss with my clients, and usually they've already identified, they know who their audience is. So I'm just clarifying, is really knowing what drives their decisions and why. Again, having that in mind before you craft your story allows you to build a story geared towards your audience. And then the second part is writing your story. So it's about, I use the rule of 4. So it's really and that is typical, like storytelling is usually beginning, middle, end. But when you're presenting, you always want to make sure you start with the end in mind. You're not going to give anything away, but what you do is you lay the groundwork and the foundation of what your desired outcome and your takeaway is. You get people interested, and so that they feel like they have a space there. If you don't ground them, people will continue to kind of question, why am I here? Why is this information important? But when you can set that groundwork, they then will listen more intently along the way, because you've kind of already given them the first step in this path, right? In this journey. Then you go in the typical kind of storytelling sequence, beginning, middle, and end, setting the scene at the beginning, laying the groundwork, giving more details of the background or how you got to where you're at. The middle is really the heart of where all the information comes in. That's where the details come in. The decisions that are needed are really started to be identified or shown, your data, your supporting resources. You start to challenge the expectations of what they think they should know or what they might know with the information that you're giving them. And then the end is reinforcing and driving home that impact and that decision that you need. You're summarizing your points, you're reinforcing the main message, and you're providing a clear call to action. Again, you've already laid the groundwork at the beginning. So this is just a recap, and you're allowing people to come along with you on that journey. I think it allows, what I found is allows my clients and as presenters to lead that conversation, to be that conductor. They lay the beats, they lay the orchestra, they tell the different instruments when to start playing, so that your audience can engage and experience it exactly how you wish them to interpret it. So once you have your story, and my client, I don't help build the story. My specialty is literally in the visuals, but I will help refine. I'm definitely a refinement guru. I am not a writer, but when you can refine your story and bring in the third step of my strategy is the visual design, and really think about from an overall visual approach and each individual slide, it allows you to reinforce what your story is and actually simplify, get less words on a slide. Simply slide intentionality, copy, and visuals. So when you think about slide intention, it's about emphasizing key details, keeping things minimal. Simple is the best way to approach things. Less slides, or less on a page, more slides is better than a lot of stuff on one page. Again, our brains cannot digest information like that. You want to lead your audience with you on your storytelling journey. And then you always want to make sure that you're balancing content and visuals for that same purpose. Visuals have such power. They are not just pictures and GIFs and icons. Visuals can be the way data is designed. It can be the way bullets or copy is highlighted, the way color is used, color blocking, using all of those kind of visual cues to align colors, to determine the right style of image, and keeping that consistent along the way, limiting or being strategic about what charts you put in, how you show them, how much data, and just, you don't always need every access point or every detail in that. You don't need every date. You can sometimes skip and just show the year underneath, right? Even though you have a bar for every month, like I get that it's January to December kind of thing. That allows your brain and your audience to focus on what you want them to be hearing and listen and seeing, and along with your text. So limiting and balancing that with your visuals. So enhancing your headlines so they're not paragraphs long, they're digestible. Keeping 6 to 8 lines or like 30 words per slide, right? So that you're concise, you're to your point, and it's information that I can retain and I can think about. The longer something is, the less likely I am going to remember it. And you want to make an impact, and you want people to be thinking about what you said along the way and following that. So less is always more. Bullets, styling, bolding, all of those things are important. Alignment of like having your headline in the same spot, in the same area of a page, having bullets treated the same way. That allows your brain to focus on the information and not try to figure out the puzzle that is being presented. And the biggest takeaway of when you can write your story, create it in that 4-part, end, beginning, middle, end again, and then leveraging visual design is that it allows you as a presenter to really deliver with confidence, with credibility, with less narration, so that your voiceover is telling the story and your slides are supporting that. So your audience is connecting everything for themselves. They're not reading while you're talking and trying to digest that and make sense of it. You've already kind of, again, helped complete the puzzle and you're just streamlining that all together. And in the end, when you can present and show that you have more confidence, when you can present slowly, when you can talk more and be more engaged, you allow your audience to connect more better, to create better accountability, credibility, and really reinforce why you're there and why you're the expert and why they should be interested in what you're sharing. And, in the end, the whole goal is to guide them where you want them to go and to make that informed decision or update, however that needs to be.
Thanks for sharing that. I think there were lots of important contents that you mentioned there. One thing that clearly came to my mind was, a presentation that I attended yesterday, and, where some of the slides were just too cluttered and there's too much of text, and you just covered that up, by saying 30 words or so as a guideline per slide, and less is more, and so on. So I think I really appreciate, all that important information, which I'm sure most of the audience would value and appreciate. So as a podcast show that helps lots of business owners, entrepreneurs, professionals, and those thinking of starting a business now or in the future, there's a question that I really wanted to ask you. In your experience, how can a well-designed presentation rather impact a business's success, in your opinion?
So I think it has exponential impact. It's like limitless. I'm really trying to figure out what this data point is, but the idea that like when you're trying to grow your business, when, in startups, investor deals, kind of even just getting buy-in decision to move your business along, when you can lead that conversation, when you can create that connection that shows that you're credible, you're trustworthy, you're knowledgeable, you're the expert, you automatically create that trust for your audience to be engaged and to be interested. And they're so much more likely to invest and say yes to you. They trust you. And that's like all of sales and all of business is about connection and trust, right? Like we're all seeking that. And when you can lead that conversation, when you can be your confident self, you create those authentic connections. I don't have proof points, but I do know of all of my clients who I have worked with, investment company specifically that I can think about, they have been having meetings with their investors their whole business, however long their business has been open. I came in this year and helped with this, with their in-person quarterly investment meeting, and the conversations that they had after that meeting, because they took the time to design their content to tell their story in the right sequential way and to really lead their audience and their investors in understanding the impact, the implications, and the growth that they had, it changed the post presentation conversations. It wasn't just about specific data. It was about overall business growth. It was about the projection of where they're going, the impact of society, of, business, those kind of things. So you're elevating those conversations and you're creating a different narrative in the end. I also know about a business who says that they lost a $30 million deal because they didn't invest properly in a well-designed presentation. Again, I'm talking a $5,000 investment for a 20-slide pitch deck. They have said that they lost that $30 million deal because it just didn't come across. And they were not credible, or their brand did not seem to have the right stance, and they didn't seem trustworthy, right? That company they were selling to wasn't willing to invest in them because of that. So there's so much that a simple and well-designed presentation can have, again, limitless impact on business. It's kind of insane to me. And that's, again, where I geek out, why I love what I can do, because I can share that and I can help somebody else fuel and foster where they want to go. Like you said before, we can always remember presentations that miss the mark, that are confusing. We don't remember the presentation. We remember how we felt and the way we were in and how much we just wanted to get out of there. Well-designed and engaged presentations, we remember the way we feel and the way we laughed, and we have conversations that look different. And that's what you want. Like, that's the goal, right? Is to have the right, to leave and let your audience have the right conversation, or to stay curious, or to be informed in the right way. And so a well-designed presentation allows that story to be told in the way you want it.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. Yes, it just the way you felt is very well remembered. And as a person who's completed probably more than 150 online courses, attended various summits and presentations over the last 3 years alone, yes, there are moments that I clearly remember where I just felt that it wasn't a great presentation, and how it made me feel. So yes, that's very true. Moving on to the next question, Emily. So, would you be able to provide, say, an example of a time when one of your presentations or the designs that you influenced or worked with significantly influenced a business's decision or outcome?
Yeah. So I worked with a tech startup a couple of years ago. They were one of my first clients, and they were a bunch of data scientists, right? They were these brilliant, really smart, a bunch of guys, and but they couldn't tell their story in a way that made their audience not necessarily interested, but like understand. They couldn't break it down. They couldn't simplify it. It was all there. They just over communicated because, again, as knowledge as experts in that information, right, and trying to sell their business and their services, they thought they needed to share everything. And so where I came in, and just in a first swoop, they like walked me through really briefly, but where I came in and just, alignment, having icons that were all styled the same, treating similar information, highlighting in data charts that aligned with their brand, that felt more eloquent, simply giving white space. Those simple, and in a first pass, they were able to see where their story was going and how they really were making an impact versus all the fine details that, like, sometimes clients don't need, or they need later on. But in that first initial kind of, you only have one, right? You only have one chance to make a first impression. You need to kind of wow people, and you need to engage them. And in the end, I would rather have questions, because that means people are paying attention, than to information overload where, like, at the end, they're like, no, we're good, because they just don't know what was shared. And so, yeah, that made a huge impact. Unfortunately, I don't remember the exact numbers, but I know that they got investment seeding, they were engaged, and they had so much more pipeline of new business coming in, because they continued to refine their story and what they did. Again, it was very complex, but when we can break it down simple in terms of how we tell it, it allows that complex information to be more digestible. And that's the key, is we want everybody to understand what we want to say. We have so many ideas, and we have so much brilliance in our brain. Sometimes it's super hard to get it out on paper. And that's where I can kind of come in and help connect the dots for people.
Thanks, Emily. My next question to you is, now, okay, it's fine that we'll do all these things, have a great presentation, but how do you actually measure whether the presentation was a successful one or not? And, are there any metrics that you could use, or is it based on the audience feedback?
Yeah. So unfortunately, sometimes I don't have all of that information. I'm trying to be better about asking clients for what that looks like. But I'm going to be honest, I am a more empathetic person. I do what I do because it's my zone of genius. It's where my joy comes in. So I measure success based on how my client feels going into that pitch, going into their presentation. Are they confident? Are they excited? Do they feel like their story and their words and what they want to happen is laid out so that they can present it with the right, flow and create that right connection for their audience. So I love, and I find success when I can share something with a client along, I'm a very collaborative person. So I do a couple working sessions along the way, and they're like, oh my God, you get it. Or that makes sense. That's exactly the point we want to hit on. And when you look at their beginning slide, there's a lot of information, there's a lot of things, but when we can design it right, we can really hit on the points that we need to say. Again, whatever that industry is, it kind of, what those key takeaways always vary, but it just helps to when you can build confidence, it shines and it allows you to do your job and focus on the things that are important. And so that's where I come in as, again, I like to be part of toolkits. I like to be part of somebody's belt and come in and help elevate and simplify and take that stress off of them. That's what I love to do. I give my clients like 16% more or 16 times back in just workload because I'm saving them hours of agony over something when, they can just give me their story, download me on how they're going to present, and then we work together to really elevate that experience.
Great. Now, talking about, preparing presentations, there are a number of tools and softwares out there, some of which I use are such as Google Slides, Microsoft PowerPoint. So are there any recommended tools and softwares that you would like to mention or recommend to anyone who is just starting off preparing a presentation?
Yeah, I'm a PowerPoint geek. So I used to think it was a bad term. I love it, especially coming from like a creative mind. I love the ability to have a container or a box that now we can push the limits in. And you can always add more pages to your story so you don't feel restrictive. But PowerPoint for me is definitely the number one tool. There are, as a visual designer, I can work the magic so that it allows my clients to edit and make changes as well. And we can kind of work together, but I can set I also sometimes do template design. So I can set the bar or the baseline for how things should look and how to treat. Google is great for shareability purposes, but unfortunately it just doesn't have the same caliber in terms of how detailed you can get. Simply like I can space out letters and adjust lining with so much more control in PowerPoint than I can in Google. And so I really focus in on PowerPoint, and I think it is a medium that is used across. I know there are a lot of people that use Google, but PowerPoint is still kind of the number one platform for presentations, I find.
Cool. Thanks, Emily. Now, when we talk about doing a presentation, I know your expertise is on storytelling and refining a presentation, but I thought I'd ask you this question anyway. So there's a debate about, whether you should be on video whilst you're doing a presentation, if it's an online presentation or not. And there are a few people who are, hesitant to put their face out. What's your opinion on that?
Oh, I think you should. I think the more you can show who you are and people can see you and hear you, and then when you have a visual support, connections are all about creating trust. And when I can see you, I trust you, I believe you, I hear you. We all listen differently too, right? I'm such a visual person that I need somebody to see, and I need their slides. I need that support versus just listening. But I don't know. I mean, for me, it's like the ability to see somebody smile and see what makes them excited, or when they get, when they're starting to talk, and you want to see that body language. I think it's so important. So I'm all about showing in your face and trying to create those connections as authentically as we can.
Thanks. Now, moving on, let's say there's a potential customer who is interested to hire you or, to provide some work. Now, how would you typically approach such an engagement? Do you have a process in place, or is it all different based on the client needs?
No, I do have like a process. Obviously, I specialize in custom presentation work, but my process is pretty standard. So I always start with a discovery call. Again, I'm all about face-to-face. So I jump on Zoom or Google Meets, and I will better understand what a client needs, and we'll discuss how I can help them. That's also what I love is that like I am not being creative. I am I creatively think and work. So nothing is like set into a box. I kind of love to push the limits. And so I will better understand what their needs are and how I can partner with them and what that should look like. Then once we kind of negotiate and the scope of work is signed, I always will have a kickoff call. So the kickoff call is at official start, pending again what the output is. My clients will usually walk me through. They have some kind of outline or an existing PowerPoint that they're like, we need help with. They will walk me through it. Again, I don't need to be the industry expert. I just need to understand what they want to say. I need to understand their narrative, and I need them to tell it to me, because when they just send me the slides, I might take away what isn't important. And so that allows a dialogue. So they're kind of not necessarily like giving me the whole presentation, but they're walking me through why these slides are there and what's important. And I also can then start to say like, oh, should this, can we visualize this and start to sketch out some ideas? So it becomes a working collaborative session. And then from there, it's usually about 2 or 3 phases or 2 or 3 rounds of me working, coming back, sharing, articulating that, again, once I can design something, especially with data and charts, sometimes we get it right the first time, but sometimes it's like it opens up, oh, actually, this is actually what I want to say now that you've hit this mark. Let's elevate this. So it allows us to be collaborative. And usually it takes about 2 or 3 working sessions. My minimum is 10 days from kickoff to final delivery. So within that, we're having, every 3 or 4 days, we're kind of meeting. But usually within, like I said, 10 to 14 days, business days, we've got our deck ready and they are ready to kind of rock and roll with it. And they've given themselves time to digest it too, so that they can present it and really, again, match their voiceover and their script to what their visuals are saying. So that's how my process goes.
That's interesting. Another question that led me to ask you is, is there a certain type of customer base that you work with or a niche that you specialize in?
No, that's what I love. I am not niche. I do have more experience in pharma, finance, investment, banking, tech companies. I'm definitely missing some other ones, transportation. But I love that I don't have to be, again, for me, it's not about being an expert in their industry. It's about being an expert in storytelling and bringing my expertise with their knowledge to tell their story better. That's why I don't focus on writing. I focus on refining the story, and hitting that mark. I do have partners who I can bring in who can help write. So I don't shun people away, but the idea is usually people have a presentation, and they're the experts. I'm just here to help them shine and a little bit brighter.
Thanks. Would you mind mentioning a few scenarios and examples of the types of customers that you've helped? Obviously, not mentioning any names and proprietary information, but maybe the types of information and presentations that you've helped to put together. For example, maybe finance, maybe fundraising, and likewise on a few other functions.
Yeah. So, across the board, right? I said those industries: pharma, tech, finance, investment banking, and again, I'm losing my words, but the idea is I help with external and internal communication. So whether they're business updates, whether they're investment and funding needs, I help with communications. I help quarterly updates. I help financial reports. I will help somebody transcend a longer document or case studies into more articulation. So again, you can highlight those key takeaways. Just also like company overviews, pitch decks, information kind of thing. So it kind of really runs the gamut, but anything where you want to inform and update somebody else who is not as knowledgeable in your information, and you have data and resources and a story to tell, there's always a way to visually elevate that so that you can tell that right story and hit the mark at the end so that they can be informed or make that impactful decision that they need.
Well, thanks. My next question is probably a controversial question, but let me ask it in any case. So what are your thoughts on using AI to prepare presentations?
I'm all for AI. AI is only there to help us, but if we don't input the information right, you're never going to get what you want. But AI is a tool. It is a support. It lets us think differently. I use AI all the time because I'm not a writer. So I love ChatGPT. It helps me use and write and craft things in a way I never thought of. It is not the end all be all. I always come in and will refine, right? We always need that human touch. Connection is authentic, personal, back and forth. And so AI is never going to do that. I would love AI to do my laundry and clean and put my dishes away. So if we could figure out how to do that, that would be amazing. I don't need AI to necessarily figure out how to design my stuff, but AI is never going to understand your intent, your simplicity, and your overall takeaway in the same way that we do when we connect with each other. And so that's the power of using AI as a tool to maybe help get us there or to help streamline, or if you're writing your own stuff, it could help simplify a headline to really condense it, but it's not going to lay out that whole slide with the right overtake or overview. Again, I only use AI limited with copy. I don't get into pictures or anything like that. but I believe it's only as smart as we've made it. And so that's the crux, I think, there is you got to be mindful.
Spot on. Yes. It's all about, what information we provide the AI so that the AI can come up with certain information, contents, and so on. But as long as we don't provide that, which could obviously be unlocked through a personal conversation better than with AI, I think, that definitely holds true. So any closing thoughts, Emily? And then maybe after that, you can share your social media handles and how people can get in touch with you as well.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest takeaway or thing to remember is less is more. So simplicity and consistency are really what are going to drive and make your presentations more impactful. You can learn more about my strategy, and I've highlighted in my 4 tips to presentation magic on my website, in my blog, but my website is IamEmilySchneider.com. You can also find me. I'm super active on LinkedIn under Emily Schneider.
Thanks, Emily. It was great having you on the podcast today, and I'm sure our audience, took back a lot of important notes, contents from this discussion today. Thank you very much for coming on the show, and wish you all the very best on your future endeavors.
Thank you. It was so lovely to talk to you today too. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you so much.